This is Amanda, my assistant. He's going to raise the flag. He's going to help us out. I'm good. I'm good. Glad to have you.
Thank you for
And look, and you made it a sunshine. How did you do that?
Yeah, yes.
We're going to rain out.
Amen to that. Yeah.
How are you, Pamela? Yes, fine. So glad that you're here.
We're going to have you go over to the flagpole. And these gentlemen are going to take down this flag. We're going to present it to you. And then we're going to ask you to help them raise a new one for us.
Celebrate with us our distinguished guest of honor, Henry Parham. And this is a personal moment for me because I was born right after the war in 1946, and I had family on the beach at Omaha and Normandy, and as you will hear, Mr. Parham's battalion helped rescue the people off the beach and get them back there. So it's very personal for me too. Anyway, you have lots of friends here and people who are in military service, and we want to take this time for everyone to express themselves and tell you how much they appreciate all that you did, all that you've done, and we appreciate everyone that gave their lives at that time in your battalion, and we know that you remember them fondly. There's someone else we want to just say appreciation for before we get started, and that is someone who's been by your side for many, many years. That's Ethel Parham. We want to recognize all the support and love that she has given you and given the Borough of Wilkinsburg as well over these years. I was proud to meet you. You probably don't remember back then, but in the 90s when I got involved in politics, you always came and voted. And I saw you vote before.
Combat veteran Henry Parham has been alive for nearly a century, and while that alone is noteworthy, it isn't what sets him apart. Gary Tuckman has the story.
21-year-old Henry Parham worked as a bus porter in Virginia when he entered the U.S. Army. Today, he's an American hero and living history. That's because Henry Parham is believed to be the last surviving African-American D-Day combat veteran.
You're going to be 98 in November.
Yes.
That's almost a century.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen a lot.
Yes, I am.
Well, you don't want to go down the steps.
Henry Parham, who lives in Pittsburgh with his wife Ethel, vividly remembers fellow soldiers drowning off Omaha Beach and the Nazi air bombardments.
Of course, I was scared for my life, sure.
He was part of a most unique Army combat unit, the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. The mission? To launch huge hydrogen-filled balloons from the beaches of Normandy to protect Allied troops on the ground from enemy aircraft above. And most notably, all the soldiers of the battalion were black. Only a relatively small number of black troops were able to be part of the D-Day invasion. The U.S. military still segregated and discriminatory.
That's the weird thing in the world. We were separated from white and black, but I was doing my duty.
He has always tried to focus on the positive.
When you came back home after the war, fighting for Americans' liberty, fighting for freedom, and realizing when you got back, you still didn't have that same liberty and same freedom that white Americans had. Were you disappointed? Were you surprised? Or did you expect that?
Well, no, I wasn't disappointed because I grew up under those conditions.
His wife of 45 years says her husband's optimism has served him well.
And I think it's a great honor that he sacrificed to make this world a better place for every one of us.
The author of this book about the black soldiers of the 320th says there were 621 troops in the battalion, and that Henry Parham is the last surviving member. After being modestly quiet about his World War II experiences for decades, Henry Parham has now received accolades and medals, including the prestigious French Legion of Honor Award.
I thank God that with all the accolades that are going around, that he's alive to witness it.
Henry Parham knows he was fortunate to survive D-Day.
Were you afraid you were going to drown?
No, because I prayed to the good Lord and Savior.
Did you know how to swim?
No.
During and after the war, Private First Class Parham is very grateful to have served.
I did my duty, I did what I was supposed to do as an
An American hero. Gary Tuckman, CNN, Pittsburgh.
Pay tribute to one of my constituents, Mr. Henry Parham, who is believed to be the last surviving African-American combat veteran from D-Day. Mr. Parham served in the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, the only African-American combat unit to land in Normandy on June 6, 1944. Men from the 320th were in the first waves to land on Omaha Beach that day. They had the vital task of preventing enemy aircraft from attacking the beaches where men and equipment were pouring ashore. Their balloons prevented enemy planes from making effective attacks, but the balloons also made excellent targets for enemy fire. Back then, the Army, like most of American society, was segregated. Nevertheless, these African Americans risked their lives to serve their country, even as blacks faced Jim Crow laws and racist violence back home. Needless to say, the German bombs and bullets didn't discriminate. 2,000 Americans died on Omaha Beach that day, including men from the 320th. Many more were wounded. I want to recognize Henry Parham of the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion for his heroic service to our country. I am very proud to represent Mr. Parham in Congress, and I yield back.
Well, that was a surprise. That was wonderful. So with us today are representatives of our elected officials to speak to you. J. Raw Doucet is here for Congressman Doyle.
Mr. Parham, I want to give you this proclamation of your heroics on behalf of Congressman Mike Doyle, and thank you sincerely for the dedication, the sacrifice, the time that you have given to our country and to defend it. I thank you so very, very much.
J. Costa's office, Joe Costanza.
I was going to read this to you, but it was all said up there. So what I'm going to do, from one veteran to another, thank you very much. Thank you for your service. I'm glad you're still around.
So is it.
I'm going to read a little thing to you about this. Okay?
Louder.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
The fact that we have liberty and democracy and justice for all, things that are the envy of the rest of the world, we have Mr. Henry Parham, because people like you, who when the time came, stood tall, put on a uniform, swore an oath to our country, and went face to face, and went to face some of the most horrendous things that people can face. Your service was remarkable, and I thank you again for your service. And on behalf of the Senate of Pennsylvania, I'd like to present to you this citation.
Today, next is Allegheny County Councilor DeWitt Wolf.
Mr. Parham, Ms. Parham, I'm DeWitt Walton from the Allegheny County Council, and I'll read you our proclamation that we're presenting tonight. But before I do, I truly understand your commitment and your sacrifice and your effort to defend your country and to do what was right, what you believe to be right. My father was a World War II veteran in Europe, and I began, as I grew up, to understand the challenges that he faced as a black American defending our country that far too often wouldn't defend us. So I truly want to appreciate and demonstrate our commitment and appreciation for your sacrifice and your commitment and your effort for America. Thank you, sir. Whereas, on June 6, 1994, 75 years ago, Henry Parham was among the more than 130,000 American and Allied troops that stormed the beaches of Normandy in France on a mission to take back Europe from the control of Nazi Germany. And whereas Mr. Parham was in the third wave of the largest amphibious assault in the history of war and spared the worst of the horrors of the first wave endured. And whereas Mr. Parham, for over 2 months, was located on Omaha Beach with the 320th Aircraft Barrage Balloon Battalion, the only black combat unit to serve at Normandy. And whereas Mr. Parham of Wilkinsburg was 21 years old and working for a bus company in Richmond, Virginia, when he was drafted into the Army in 1942, trained in Tennessee with the 320th and shipped out to England in 1943 for more training. And whereas D-Day was the first combat experience for Mr. Parham. Whereas with the 320th, Mr. Parham's job was to use helium-filled barrage balloons to defend the beach from attack by German planes. Whereas, after 68 days on the beach, Mr. Parham's unit moved on to Sherburne, where it protected General George Patton's Third Army. After Germany surrendered, Mr. Parham and the 320th were reassigned and began training in Georgia for duty in the Pacific. Mr. Parham was supposed to go to Okinawa, however his ship broke down and he never left Hawaii. Shortly after Japan surrendered, Mr. Parham was able to return to Richmond and eventually made Pittsburgh his home in 1949. Whereas Mr. Parham's bravery and dedication to his country displayed 75 years ago has resulted in him in being awarded several due honors. Chevalier of the Legion of Honor. The Legion of Honor is the highest decoration in France, and Chevalier is the highest degree of 5 that can be awarded. Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal, an American Campaign Medal, World War II Victory Medal, and World War II Marksman's Badge. And whereas Mr. Parham, as an active member of the American Legion Post 376 in Pittsburgh, Mr. Parham has held numerous positions: Commander, District 32 Deputy, Hospital Representative at VA Hospital Healthcare Systems, and Memorial Day Parade Coordinator at Allegheny and St. Mary's Cemeteries. Now therefore be resolved that I, Allegheny County Councilmember DeWitt Walton, do hereby commend and honor the selfless action displayed by Henry Parham on the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, and may his courage displayed there that day, along with the other servicemen present continue to strengthen our free nation, and give us hope in the future. In witness thereof, I have hereunto caused the seal of the County of Allegheny to be affixed to this 18th day of June 2019. Thank you, sir.
I'm speaking on behalf of council. I want to say that the Borough of Wilkinsburg is proud to have you as our residents, and we have for many years. But even prouder for all that you've accomplished, both during and all your lives. I've never seen such a happy couple. So this is really, really wonderful. You know, surviving that many years is amazing, as well as what you did on the beach here. You know, I'm not going to read it all because you've heard this before and everyone, but I wanted to say it's such an honor to have someone who has come up through the United States segregation way of life and is a positive human being and embraces everyone. And that is exciting for me to see, and in Wilkinsburg, that's something that we're ever endeavoring to do every day. And you set an example for all of us, and we appreciate that. Representative Ed Gainey was planning to be here, but I guess he's a little late. So we have something from him too that we'll have later. I want to open it to the floor. Does anyone have anything they would like to say? Because I see we have veterans here from various places. Does anybody would like to feel free to? Please come forward, sir.
I've known Henry for about 30 years now. When I was a young fellow in the American Legion. Now I am the district commander, of course. But Henry's always been involved with the American Legion. His commitment to the veterans is unbelievable. He has done so much, although he's so quiet, you don't know. His story is only part of what you hear, of course. And the story in the book, which addresses Henry and his fellow mates, I think out of that 320th Barrage Battalion, he's the only surviving African-American soldier left. So everything that happens now is going to be Henry. Everything's going to be Henry. And I'm so proud to call him my friend. He was so cool. Him and Ethel both. Absolutely fantastic. Henry, congratulations, my friend.
That you were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect our country, especially in a time when our country would not have done the same for you. We are forever grateful for your valor, bravery, and your service. It's truly an honor to honor you tonight. So on behalf of the Mayor of Wilkinsburg and every police officer in this room, we honor you.
Before we go and eat cake, is there anybody else who would like to say anything?
Escorted with a police barrage. Never rode in a police car in my life. Got to wait to be this age. I want to thank each and every one of you who came out this afternoon to share this moment with us. It's really, truly an honor. I never dreamed that I married such a famous man. So thank you on behalf of my husband and I. And we will do the best that we can in the community. And if there's anything going on, we've been living here 17 years. We don't always know what's going on because we don't get the news till after it's over with. So please let us know ahead of time so that we can come and participate. Thank you very much.